The story begins with one of our main protagonists called Evangeline McDowell. She recalls her high school days with Neji Springfield, a young professor at her all-girls school who was loved by all the students he taught. And although he was a shy and timid person, he had a unique kind of power as he could disarm a full army with just a single sneeze. Evangeline is a vampire, which makes her immortal as she can't age. When she woke up on her 10th birthday, she discovered that she had been turned into a vampire while she slept, through sorcery, not by being bitten, thus making her a true blood vampire. After school, Evangeline decided to go to the countryside. She took the form of an older woman and changes her name to Yukame. She takes it upon herself as a responsibility to take care of a 14-year-old boy and our main protagonist, called Tota Kano, who is the grandson of Neji Springfield that had lost both of his parents in a deadly accident. However, Tota had lost more than his family physically, as his memories of them are gone too. Tota and his friends from the countryside have always had the dream of going to the top of the tower in Tokyo, but one thing holds them back, being Yukame's approval. She made it clear that when Tota and his friends can beat her, she will let them go to the tower. Desperate to achieve their dream, Tota and his friends meet a man who teaches them how to do high-level magic. But unknown to them, he has evil intentions, as the magic he taught them is mainly for the purpose of capturing Yukame. It is revealed that the man is actually an immortal hunter who wants to kill Yukame. The time came for Tota and his friends to use the magic, and as a part of the plan, Tota gives Yukame a bracelet which was meant to be a gift, but instead it seals Yukame's power. Days later, Tota and his friends try to capture Yukame and finally defeat her, as they have always wanted. However, it doesn't go according to plan, as they figure out that the man who taught them how to do the magic is an immortal hunter whose aim is to capture Yukame. It is revealed that Yukame is the most wanted immortal with a large bounty on her head, so enticing. The hunter goes on to cut Tota into pieces, and just as he's about to defeat Yukame, the seemingly dead Tota discovers that he can't die. Yukame then reveals that she turned him into a high-rank immortal, so he can't die no matter what. After coming to terms with everything and realizing that his only guardian is in danger, Tota unlocks his true powers and defeats the bounty hunter, saving both Yukame and his friends. Later on, Yukame explains everything about how Tota got his powers, further revealing that she had to turn him into a vampire as it was the only way to save him from dying, which was his parents' last wish. The next day, Yukame finally decides to take Tota to the tower in Tokyo, which he is over the moon about, as he now has the chance to make new friends. He had his mind set at making a lot of friends before going back to the countryside. On their way to Tokyo, Tota finds a waterfall and decides to go and take a bath in it. Yukame then tells him that he has to take his immortality seriously. She reveals to him a dawning fact that he will be 14 years old forever. Now at the waterfall, Tota gets lost in his thoughts, dwelling on the fact that he'll remain 14 years old forever. Knowing that all his friends would grow up while he remains the same is what troubles him the most. However, while still deep in his thoughts, he bumps into an immortal hunter called Kiramaru. Unaware of this, Tota makes Kiramaru his friend and takes him to meet Yukame. He seemed to waste no time in revealing his true nature as he attempts to kill Yukame. To counter, Yukame uses a move that would kill any human instantly, but Kiramaru doesn't die. And in a shocking revelation, she realizes that Kiramaru is also an immortal. Having figured this out, Yukame tells Kiramaru to fight Tota, promising that if he can beat Tota, then he would be worthy of fighting her. Before they fight, Tota states a condition of his own. If he beats Kiramaru, then they would all have to become friends. Kiramaru accepts the deal and they go on to battle it out. Fortunately, Tota wins the battle, and in turn Kiramaru becomes their ally. Having gotten a new comrade, they continue their journey to Tokyo. On their way, Yukame stops at a spring to take a bath. While waiting, Kiramaru tells Tota everything about himself. Kiramaru is actually genderless, meaning that he doesn't have the same physical features of either a male or female due to his demonic lineage, who remain genderless until their 16th birthday. When heading out again, Tota brings up an idea to look for all the immortals in the world and assemble them together to fight for the good of humanity. But his speech is cut short by an entourage of immortals who had come to welcome their leader Yukame. Yukame then tells him that she had already done what he thought of by assembling all the immortals she could find to form an organization called UQ Holder. The UQ Holders take Tota and Kiramaru to their headquarters, where they are given a test to join the organization. All they have to do is land a single blow on any of the UQ Holders who have been tagged with numbers. Tota is given the number 3 with Kari as his opponent, while Kiramaru is given the number 6 with Gengoro as his. When the test begins, Tota tries to surprise Karin with a swift attack, but she seems to foresee his every move. Gradually getting frustrated after trying again and again, he keeps failing to land the determining blow. Meanwhile, Kiramaru has no luck in landing an attack on Gengoro either. While forming the next plan of action, Toda and Kiramaru stumble on a girl called Shinobu, a human who works at the headquarters. They decide to aid Shinobu in carrying out her task, and in the process they meet UQ holder number 2 who goes by the name Jinbei. Jinbei tells Toda to try and lift a sword, which he does with ease. Impressed by this, Jinbei decides to give them a little training that could help them complete their task, teaching Toda how to properly use the sword. On the last day of training, the two get ready to complete their task. After much time of fighting Gengoro, Kiramaru finally completes their task, but on the other hand Toda is finding it hard. However, just as he's about to land the winning blow, Toda hears that Shinobu is being attacked by monsters. This prompts him to ditch his task in a bid to save her. After saving her, Toda uses the gravity sword to kill all the monsters. Although Toda didn't complete the task yet, his heroic deeds didn't go unnoticed as Karin tells Yukime what he did. Later on, Toda, Kiramaru and Jinbei are given a task to destroy all the monsters in the cave Toda had opened during their training. Yukime gives Toda and Kiramaru a task alongside Karin. The task is to go to the village and protect the civilians from enemies who want to destroy the village. When they get to the village, the UQ holders stay in an orphanage to rest. The following morning they play a game of arm wrestling to decide who is going to cook everyone breakfast. Unfortunately for Toda, he loses all the rounds and is forced to cook. They all then decide to use the arm wrestling game every day as a means to decide who will cook. They do this as Toda is most likely to lose and he makes delicious food, so they want him to cook every time. However, Karin tells Toda to do some flash step training if he wants to get better at arm wrestling. One day while training, Toda stumbles across a martial artist who offers to teach him how to flash step. The martial artist tells him to try using his legs to do everything. Wanting to get better, Toda heeds the advice, and while practicing in the house, a boy called Ruki joins him. Meanwhile, the enemies whom they have been sent to defend the village against are about to execute their plan by burning down the village. They start off by defeating the UQ holder guards that were placed in the city. They then split up to try and keep Karin busy. While one of them keeps Karin occupied, the rest go around burning the village. Surprisingly, one of the enemies is the martial artist who had taught Toda how to flash step. Upon seeing him, the martial artist uses a spell to immobilize Toda. Then he and one of the enemies, who is a blind swordsman, proceeds to battle against Kiramaru. While the shadow mage immobilizes Karin, Kiramaru has their hands full fighting both the martial artist and the blind swordsman. While fighting, Kiramaru gets cut in half, courtesy of the martial artist, whose name is now revealed as Kaido. Just as Kaido is about to finish the job of killing Kiramaru, Ruki shows up in order to try and save his town. However, his heroic acts are short-lived as Kaido swerves his attacks and is at the point of killing him. In a brief moment, Toda regains consciousness and uses a power called Magia Erebia, which has been wielded by only 2 people in the past. Seeing this power wielded by Toda was so hard to believe. Meanwhile, Karin manages to break free from the Shadow Mage spell. She rushes over to help Toda, taking on the blind swordsman, allowing Toda to focus on Kaido the martial artist. After a heated battle, Toda beats Kaido to the point of death. He has the chance to finish the martial artist but ends up deciding to let him go. Before going, the two decide to play an arm wrestling match. For the first time, Toda wins. After winning the match, Kaido and the blind swordsman decide to run away. Meanwhile, the fire in the village seemed to be out of control, but all hope is not lost as Yukime uses her powers to conjure ice, instantly putting out the fire in the village. Days pass and it is revealed that Kiramaru has started to catch feelings for Toda but hides it from him. Kiramaru is hell-bent on making sure that he doesn't find out, but as a result grows jealous of Toda and Shinobu's relationship. Meanwhile, Karin finds out that Kiramaru is from a tribe where those below the age of 16 remain genderless until their 16th birthday, whereupon they choose to become either male or female. After discovering this fact, Karin tells Kiramaru to pick the female gender when the time comes. On the other hand, one of the UQ holders hear what Karin and Kiramaru are talking about and decide to give them a solution. He comes up with a plan to dress Kiramaru as a girl and make them go on a date with Toda. This plan is crafted to let Kiramaru understand if they want to be with Toda as a male or as a female. Upon hearing this, Kiramaru likes the plan and tries their best to execute it. She dresses like a girl and goes to meet Toda, claiming to be Karyu, Kiramaru's cousin. For their date, Kiramaru and Toda set out for the city. All seems to be going well and Kiramaru appears to be enjoying every moment of it. When going into the tower, Toda is extremely happy as this has been his dream for the longest time. However, their cool date is cut short as the Shadow Mage and a 4-armed man appear. The Shadow Mage uses a spell to immobilize Toda, leaving Kiramaru alone to fight. Kiramaru discovers that in female form they can't use their powers effectively. They had to change back into a man to be able to save Toda. After contemplating, Kiramaru changes back and fights, forcing the enemies to flee. Now safe, Toda regains his consciousness. They then both return from the city together and Karin is shocked to see that Kiramaru came back in male form. Meanwhile, one of the immortals with a special power called Kiri is introduced, revealed that she has the power to reset time. She takes Toda to a private place so they could talk. While talking, the Shadow Mage suddenly attacks Kiri, causing her to die nearly instantly. But fortunately, at the last moment, Kiri uses her power to rewind time to the moment before Toda and Kiramaru went out for their date. Iku and Karin are surprised to see Toda still in the UQ Holders' headquarters. Kiri begs them to carry herself and Toda to the city. Toda and Kiri try to relive the previous moment by going to the place they were just attacked at. This time, Toda catches the Shadow Mage just as he was about to kill Kiri. Having succeeded, Kiri talks to Toda about someone called Fate of Averuncus, the greatest mage in the world and a man who seeks to kidnap him. In the process of telling him this, Iku and Karin find out Kiri's secret power, but promise to keep it a secret and focus on developing a plan to defeat Fate of Averuncus. After much thought, Kiri comes up with a plan to trap the powerful mage in a cave. Everything seemed to be going according to plan until Toda meets his friends from the countryside, who are forced to call off the attack for Toda's sake. Fate of Averuncus was actually a savior of humanity until Toda's grandfather Neji Springfield died. After Neji's death, Fate started behaving in a manner that was absolutely unacceptable, which had led him to becoming a much perceived threat to humanity. The slight hesitation in executing the plan made everything fall apart. In order to put the plan back together, Toda cries that a terrorist was in the tower, which causing complete pandemonium. Karin and Toda capitalized on the commotion to try and defeat Fate of Averuncus. However, he proves to be too strong for them. The plan seemed to be falling apart, but when their trump card Kiri is petrified by Fate of Averuncus, Toda decides to take on the infamous mage one-on-one. As much as it seemed like a bad idea, it was all part of the plan. Toda's is meant to distract the mage, giving Kiri the time she needs to undo the spell. Shortly after, Kiri finally undoes the spell, after which she takes her own life and sends Fate of Averuncus to the cave along with Toda, Karin, Iku, and Kiramaru. When they get to the cave, they notice Yukame waiting for them. She tells them to let Fate go, but they all refuse, so Fate offers to answer any question they ask of him. Seizing this opportunity, Iku asks the first question, which was pointed directly to Fate and his desire to capture Toda. In response, Fate explains that he needed Toda in order to save Neji Springfield. Karin asks the next question regarding to who Neji Springfield loved the most. Fate responds that he doesn't have an answer to that, but all he knew was that Yukame loved Neji dearly. To end the conversation, Toda asks his own question. He asks, "Were you the one that killed my parents?" To which Fate answered that indeed he was the one that did it. Angry and bitter, Toda tries to beat up Fate but is interrupted by his grandfather, who uses telepathy to communicate with him. Kiramaru goes on to destroy the seal on Toda's back and in turn destroyed the only way Toda's grandfather could communicate with them. After a while, Kiri begins catching feelings for Toda too. However, she is not happy that he was not there when his grandfather showed up. Meanwhile, Toda tries to find out the truth about what his grandfather, but unfortunately his questions fell into deaf ears. Frustrated as ever, Toda goes out to train and let off some steam. While training, he stumbles upon Shinobu, who makes him some tea to put him at ease. Now calm down, Shinobu has another guest who introduces himself as Mizor. Mizor tries to fight Toda but loses almost instantly. Having lost, she asks him to marry her, but Toda declines her proposal. The next day, Mizor makes breakfast for Toda and dresses up like Shinobu. She then invites him over to have breakfast with her. Meanwhile, Kiramaru, Kiri, and Shinobu watch from afar. Kiri realizes that Mizor cooked the food herself as her hand was bandaged and filled with cuts. Noticing that the girls were feeling jealous, Iku came up with a myth on rubbing Toda's back 50 times while he was in the spring. The following day, Iku takes Toda to the spring to relax, but all of a sudden the girls begin fighting over who should scrub Toda's back. After much arguing, Yukame comes forward and does it. Yukame asks Toda to come over later so they can talk. Later that night, he goes to meet her. Yukame tells him how and why he was created and the reason he had no memories of his parents. It is revealed that Toda is a clone of Neji Springfield for the purpose of inheriting his unique powers, being the sole success among 72 clones. Yukame also tells him that his grandfather was possessed by a witch, which happens to be the Mage of Beginning. The mage isn't immortal, but she was undying. Toda is devastated after finding out he is nothing more than a mere clone. Kiramaru tries to console him and bring him back to his senses. In a bid to console him, one of the competitors for his heart, Mizor, decides to take him to the Mahora martial arts tournament, which occurs only once a year. Toda had always wanted to participate in the tournament, but it was never possible as the fighters were always preselected before the festival. Although he won't get to participate in the tournament this year, Toda is happy that he will have the chance next year. At the tournament, Toda is privileged to meet some of his grandfather's students, and is indeed happy to see them. One of the students he saw was Mizor's grandmother. Meanwhile, the UQ Holder headquarters seem to be too quiet for Shinobu. She decides to join everyone and come to the city to watch the tournament. Luckily for Toda, and due to some impromptu events, A space was made available for him to compete in the tournament. His first opponent is a lady by the name Cutlass. The fight was actually a setup by Neji Springfield to weaken him and gain his power. The mage of the beginning who possessed Neji Springfield's body wanted to use the power in Tota for evil. Yukume shows up and destroys the barrier around the arena. She did this so she could get access to Tota. Kiri, Kiramaru and Karin all go inside the arena to try and save Tota. Neji Springfield disarms the entire stadium with just a sneeze. This makes Tota a bit worried, but he doesn't let his feelings get the best of him. In the heat of battle, the demon who made the gravity sword called Kummel Sanders had wanted to use mind games to win over Tota. His main objective was to convince Tota to go with him. Kota believed he was just telling him his visions and showing his imagination. But that was not the case at all. When Tota finds out that it was nothing more than mind games, he becomes furious. During the battle, Yukume had been beaten severely. Tota holds the unresponsive Yukume in his hands and hears everything she has to say. Shortly after, he tries running but figures that the mage of the beginning is all over the place. When Yukume comes back to her senses, she uses a spell to try and make the fight even. However, her efforts were in vain as the fight continues to be very difficult. Luckily for Tota, his grandmother Asuna comes to his rescue. Yukume could not believe that Asuna was still alive because she remembered that Asuna sacrificed herself in Mars. Asuna helps them escape from the imaginary world that the mage of the beginning had put them into. She tells Tota how to beat mage mercenaries and that he has to survive for at least 36 seconds, revealing that after 37 seconds, his true power and the power needed to defeat the mage of the beginning will be unlocked. He sticks to his grandmother's instructions and is able to defeat most of the mage's mercenaries. In spite of their hatred for each other, Yukume and Fate work together with Tota in order to stop the evil mage. Fate then takes Tota to his grandfather, the real Neji Springfield. He then carries both the soul of Neji, Yukume and Tota out of their bodies so they can decide how to destroy the mage. However, Fate's plan had a very high probability of working to stop the mage from possessing any other person, but one bitter truth remains: it would mean that they would have to sacrifice Neji Springfield, whose body the mage is occupying. Tota tells Neji to spend the little time he has left with Yukume, rather than using it to give him advice. While they fight, the plan suddenly starts falling apart as the mercenaries get back into the game. However, just as the mage is about to kill Tota, Kiri arrives. She tries to distract them for some time, but her distraction doesn't last for long. The mage figures out that she can't kill Kiri because of her ability to reset and restart. Instead, the mage uses Kiri's love for Tota as a distraction for her, while Cutlass goes in to remove anything that could kill Kiri, including the suicide pill Kiri had put in one of her teeth. While all this is going on, the mage has no idea that everything Kiri did was just a distraction before Tota's power was unlocked. In a brief moment, the power finally gets unlocked and is revealed to be Neji's weakness, the girls he taught in high school. Eventually, the mage finally agrees to leave Neji Springfield. The stadium, on the other hand, is evacuated with the help of Iku and Shinobu. Sometime later, Tota goes to confess his love for Yukume, but she rejects him abruptly. And this brings the anime to an end. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on another video. Until next time, take care.